friends, so before asking yourself, is a person I'm in a relationship with selfish, there are some things you should think about. First is that if you're asking this question at all, there's probably a reason for you to be leaning towards yes. And I say this only because when someone is unselfish in general, it's usually easy to see that because it's part of their personality. The same goes for selfishness too, actually. And just a footnote, while selfishness itself is not always bad, relationships by their very nature require a level of being selfless. We have another video coming up soon about good selfishness versus bad selfishness. Stay tuned for that. But for the purposes of this video, not to be Captain Obvious here, but being selfish means you have overwhelmingly more concern for yourself than anything else, including other people and your relationships with them. I don't even need to say why this is not great for being in a relationship, because the concept of selfishness sort of contradicts being in a relationship in general. In order to be in a happy, healthy relationship, you have to know and understand the concept of sharing, compromise, sacrifice, etc. When you are an inherently selfish person, or you have become that way because of events in your past, it can be very difficult to sometimes even recognize that you're doing it. Self-centered people very often do not know that they are self-centered. It's kind of part of the whole selfish thing. Many of them also think that they are great partners, ideal ones even, because maybe they check off a couple of the boxes that are necessary to call something a relationship. We talked about this at length in last week's YouTube video about what it means to be a good partner. So go check that out for more context on that particular issue. Anyway, so is being selfish a red flag in a relationship? Yeah. It's a red flag in general, really, because it affects everything about your connections with other people. Just like nobody wants a selfish partner. Nobody wants a selfish friend or sibling or parent or anything for that matter. It's very difficult to be in a relationship of any kind with a selfish person, period. Now, that doesn't mean that this behavior can't change. Someone can learn to be less selfish. And it doesn't mean that they can't become more self-aware. Of course they can. But sometimes we meet people like this and enter into relationships with them with the hopes that this will change. But look, you do that at your own risk. You already know that people only change when they want to. They won't change for you or for the right one or because they are guilted into it or because you have children at stake, etc. It just doesn't happen without a shift inside of that person. You can certainly make temporary strides where they rise to an occasion and be better, but they're going to go back to who they really are eventually. Unless they commit to lasting change, you're going to have an uphill battle every time a situation calls for it. That's a lot. Anyway, so what are some indicators, aka big waving red flags, that someone is a selfish partner? Here come a few. Never compromising. I made this one first for a reason, because learning to compromise is not only necessary in a romantic relationship, but it's necessary in any relationship, whether it be a friendship or anything else. People who cannot and will not meet you halfway on anything, who will not try, at least, to see your side, who will not ever admit they could be mistaken, who will not give other people grace over a mistake or misunderstanding, who refuse to be even mildly inconvenienced because of someone else, are going to have a very hard time in life. Because guess what? Sure, you might think that you are very important, but so does everyone else. And when it comes to relationships, you have to remember that you're dealing with a whole other person, their wants, their needs, their thoughts, their opinions, their feelings, and those may not always be 100% in line with yours. Hell, sometimes they can be way off, like not even in the wrong ballpark, but like 3 states over. If you can't understand that sometimes plans change, things don't go the way you wanted, there will be misunderstandings, and sometimes you're going to need to put what you want aside for the sake of your partner, then you're going to have a hard time keeping that partner. This one thing, people's stubbornness and refusing to care about other people's feelings, sounds like such a simple thing, but it is so very strangely difficult for people to execute. I've known people whose refusal to compromise on things that matter, or hell, even a collection of small things built over time that really don't matter in the grand scheme of things, has landed them in divorce court. Y'all, you cannot have it your way all the time. Relationships are not a Burger King. And when this happens, you already know whose fault this is, right? Your ego. It hates compromise the way I hate Cotton Eye Joe. And for those who know me know that I hate it enough for me to put it at the top of my things that you absolutely do not play or you're fired for the DJ at my wedding back in August. Anyway, you can't let your ego have this kind of power. It's going to get you into trouble. Learn that sometimes you have to tell it to STFU and use other parts of your brain to make your decisions. The parts where empathy and kindness and understanding reside would be good starts. Compromising, again, is a skill to learn for life, not just relationships, and I don't really need to say much more about it, right? So let's move on to another big ticket item. Not attempting to fix things that upset you. This one kind of goes along with compromise, but it's different in that it requires long-term changed behavior. When you have a problem in your relationship, you should talk about it. And you should feel safe doing so, too. And look, sometimes you won't, especially if the relationship is newer, but all relationships that last must get to that point. When your partner does something or allows something to happen that bothers, upsets, or hurts you, and you talk to them about that, a good partner, will listen, process, and then work on changing the behavior. They won't continue it. They sure as hell won't double down on it. They will apologize if needed. They will care enough to do something, in other words. Someone who is selfish will not do any of those things. When you point out that something doesn't sit well with you, especially when you point it out multiple times, and the person continues to do that anyway, you really need to pay attention to that behavior. That's a red flag with a talk bubble over it, and it is yelling out, "Psst, this person doesn't respect you." And I don't know about you, but the time to be tolerant of relationships with people who don't respect you is never. It's never okay. When you're a young person moving through the world, you tend to be more willing to accept this. I'm here to tell you that you really shouldn't. There is nobody in the world that is worth keeping at your side if they don't respect you. Period. Full stop. Making plans without considering your feelings. Now look, I'm not talking about simple things here like choosing a sandwich for your partner at the deli without asking them what they want. I'm talking about bigger things, like saying yes to going to a party that celebrates someone who makes your partner uncomfortable and that they absolutely cannot stand, and then staying there for 36 hours. Or taking on additional responsibilities that involves your union or household, even if you don't live together, or your finances, or something that you share together, like bringing home 14 orphans you found in the parking lot at a Walgreens without asking your partner first. Someone needs to clothe and feed those orphans for years to come, and no matter how much you are convinced that you can do it all alone, you can't. That is going to affect their life too, and your relationship, and, well, just about everything else. And not to mention, you are setting the stage for yourself to be resentful of your partner when they don't chip in and help you with any of it. Which, let's be real, they didn't sign up for that. You did. Just saying. Anyway, the point here is, making plans and decisions without asking your partner is disrespectful and is selfish. Don't assume that someone is fine with something just because you are. Give them the respect of choice, of feeling like their opinions and feelings matter, because they do. Lack of reciprocation. Nothing says selfish like this does. In a true partnership, you just cannot take and take and take. No matter how patient and kind someone is, they will get tired of this. With all due respect, if you cannot give what you're getting, If you cannot give effort to a person who is giving an effort for you, if you cannot take care of them the way they take care of you, and I mean emotionally, because that's way more important than anything else, truly, then please stay single and figure it out. The absolute minimum you can give someone is time and attention and effort in a partnership. If you can't give that, if you can't be bothered to even do the most basic thing like listen, you're wasting their time. Sorry, not sorry. That's all I feel like I need to say about that one too. Me is more important than we is another red flag that pops up and indicates someone is selfish. I don't like to make generalizations on this channel, but people who are selfish also tend to be a bit narcissistic. That word narcissist, by the way, is thrown around a lot lately, and we're going to talk about that subject at length at a later date in a 3-part video series which is in progress, because not everyone that is labeled a narcissist necessarily is, and there are a lot of subtypes, etc. It's complicated. So let's put it this way for the time being. Not every person who is selfish is a narcissist, but everyone who is a narcissist is very selfish. It is hardwired. Now, when you have a partner who is self-centered, aka selfish, they expect a lot from you, and if they don't get it, there will be judgments. Yet, they don't want you to have the same or even similar expectations of them. They are focused on me only. The we is a secondary thing if it's even a thought. And when you're in a relationship with someone, that can't be. Their happiness has to be important to you. Their fulfillment has to be important to you. They have to be important to you. Me needs to sit that one out in favor of we. If not, someone is going to have hurt feelings, and honestly, can you blame them? Another, they do not take responsibility for anything. Oof. Selfish people do this just in general, but in relationships even more so, because now they don't need to search for a scapegoat. There's one right there. Listen, when people do not ever see anything wrong with their behaviors or actions, that is a big, big red flag. Refusing to have accountability for themselves and their actions has an impact on that relationship and on the person that they are in a relationship with. I shouldn't have to say this, but nobody likes being blamed for everything. Nobody wants to be left holding the bag every single damn time. To say that it is not conducive to a healthy relationship is a huge understatement. To say that it shows a lack of maturity is even more of an understatement. Another, they are emotionally unavailable. We talked about this subject in another video a couple of weeks ago. It was called Don't Be a Maybe for Anyone Ever Again. And I think that covers this subject extensively enough that I'll just touch on it very lightly here. Emotional unavailability happens for many reasons, but regardless of that, it has inherent selfishness built right in when it comes to relationships. If you cannot connect with somebody emotionally, and I mean really, really do it, where you are talking about your feelings instead of avoiding the discussion or dismissing the other person's feelings and needs because you can't deal, you are setting them up to feel isolated and unheard. Those feelings are pretty detrimental in a relationship. Nobody wants to feel like their life is a constant audition for the part of Quasimodo in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, or even worse, Mr. Fairbrother in Middlemarch. Those characters may have sacrificed it all, literally, for the person they love, but that's not likely to happen in real life. Those are just stories. So, to bring it back to the 21st century here, if you can't keep it real with people who are keeping it real with you, don't be surprised when they leave your ass. So, anyway, there are 6 things that we just talked about, which are behaviors to watch for, that when you take the mask off the other person Scooby-Doo style, and say, let's see who you really are, is a big old red flag with the word selfish written on it in big, bold lettering. It's important to pay attention to all red flags, my friends, really. But these, These are not a sign that there is a really fun carnival ahead. These are a sign that you need to make sure that the person you are giving your all to is willing and capable of giving that to you. That's all I've got for you this week. I'll be back next week with another priority message. Until then, take good care of yourselves. Bye.